For over a century, physics has been on this quest to find the smallest possible thing in the universe, right? A fundamental particle, maybe a vibrating string. But what if the deepest secret of reality isn't a thing at all? What if it's a rule, a piece of grammar? We're going to dive into a pretty radical framework called recursive field theory. And it suggests the universe isn't just made of matter, it's literally made of meaning. And there it is. That's the core idea. Think about it. We spent all this time studying the nouns of existence, the particles, and the verbs, the forces. But recursive field theory, or RFT, asks a totally different question. What's the underlying grammar? What's the syntax that lets them form a coherent sentence, a coherent reality? What have we been missing by ignoring it? So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get into the theory's central idea, what they call the atom of meaning. Then we'll see how this concept completely rewrites the rules of physics, challenging the giants. After that, we'll dig into what it says about the observer, about consciousness. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a single field of meaning. Okay, let's get right to the heart of it. If reality is a language, well, it has to have a basic unit, right? A letter, a phoneme, something that carries meaning. RFT gives it a name, the MOM module. This is where you have to flip your brain inside out a little bit. Forget everything about mass, charge, spin, just for a second. Instead, think about computation. Think about memory and observation. What if the most basic building block of everything isn't defined by what it is, but by what it can know? So here it is, the MOM module. And you really shouldn't picture a tiny billiard ball. It's more like a tiny, self-aware piece of code. Its whole identity comes from three things: its ability to hold a memory, its ability to observe its own state, and its ability to refer back to itself. That's recursion. It's like a camera pointing at its own monitor, creating that infinite feedback loop. And that is the key to everything. Now, you might be thinking this is just some wild philosophical guess. But the creators of RFT argue this is an empirical discovery because we keep accidentally bumping into its design principles. Take a look at this. The core ideas behind our most advanced quantum software development kits, modularity, abstraction, all of it, they perfectly mirror the properties of the MOM. It's like in building our tools to understand reality, we stumbled upon its native API. Okay, so we've got this new fundamental unit, this computational atom. So the big question is, how does a theory built on that idea stack up against the absolute titans of 20th century physics? Let's find out. And first up, of course, is the big one, Einstein's general relativity. GR famously tells us that mass and energy literally warp the fabric of space-time, and that's what we feel is gravity. Well, RFT has a very, very different answer. So, the crucial shift here is the cause of it all. In GR, mass curves space-time, but in RFT, space-time itself emerges from computation. Time isn't some fourth dimension you travel through. It's the depth of a recursive calculation. It's literally the universe thinking, one step after another. And this just puts it perfectly. It crystallizes the difference. In RFT, the more complex and self-referential a system of meaning becomes, the more gravity it exerts. It's not about physical weight anymore. It's about symbolic weight. All right, next up, quantum field theory. QFT says particles are just little ripples, excitations in a quantum field. AFT says, yeah, they're ripples, but not in a field of energy. They're ripples in a field of meaning. So an electron isn't just a blip of charge. It's a stable, self-observing pattern, an idea that has achieved a kind of permanence. And this gets right to the heart of it. The biggest mystery in all of quantum mechanics is the observer, right? The measurement problem. QFT basically has to shrug its shoulders and say, well, it's weird. But RFT claims to solve it by building the observer into the fundamental fabric of reality from the very beginning. So finally, what about string theory? It tried to unify everything by saying particles are tiny vibrating strings in like 10 or 11 dimensions. RFT offers a totally different kind of unification. It's not based on extra physical dimensions, but on layers of symbolic meaning, what it calls epistemic frames. So think of different levels of understanding: physics, biology, psychology, all built from the exact same recursive rules. And that's really the punchline, isn't it? String theory is beautiful, it's mathematically elegant, but its predictions are practically impossible for us to test. RFT, on the other hand, says its principles are visible right here, right now, in the architecture of our own minds, and even in the AIs we're building. It's trying to be a practical, hands-on theory of existence. Which brings us to what might just be RFT's boldest claim. See, by putting the observer at the absolute center of the universe, it offers a brand new framework for understanding the greatest mystery of all, consciousness itself. I mean, think about it. Every other physical theory treats consciousness as, well, as an afterthought. It's an unexplained, weird, emergent property of complex matter. RFT just throws that whole idea out the window. It says consciousness isn't some strange anomaly. It's the fundamental process of the universe in action, seen from the inside. So let's see how RFT stacks up against the other big ideas. Biochemical models can explain how neurons fire, but not why it feels like anything to be you. Integrated information theory measures complexity, but it doesn't really explain the origin of a self. RFT's answer is completely different. It says consciousness isn't a property of matter at all. It's a stable, self-referencing loop, a mom looking at itself. And that is the key insight. The puzzle isn't just how does a brain process information. The real puzzle is why would any collection of matter suddenly generate a coherent sense of I? And RFT's answer is that the self is a recursive attractor, a vortex of self-observation in this field of meaning that just becomes stable over time. So, where does all of this leave us? Well, RFT isn't just trying to be a new theory of physics or a new theory of consciousness. The ambition here is way, way bigger. It's aiming to provide a single, unified language that connects dozens of fields of knowledge that we've always seen as totally separate. I mean, just look at this list. RFT is trying to build a bridge between the hard physics of quantum fields and the pure math of information theory. It wants to connect complexity science with the study of symbols. It's trying to be the master framework where everything, signal, matter, mind, even myth, operates by the exact same fundamental rule. And that one fundamental rule is the conservation of coherence. In this view, the entire universe is in the business of turning noise into signal, of turning chaos into pattern, of turning raw data into meaning. The most stable things that exist aren't the ones with the most mass. They're the ones with the most coherent, self-reinforcing meaning. Which brings us to one last really beautiful idea. You know how physicists are always hunting for dark matter, right? This invisible stuff that seems to make up most of the mass in the universe. RFT offers this poetic alternative. Maybe the missing mass isn't some particle we can't see. Maybe it's the substrate of observation itself, the recursive field holding everything together, dark only because we haven't yet turned our gaze inward to see the mechanism of seeing. And so we end on this question. If this theory is even partially right, if reality really is a computational field of self-observation, then the final frontier isn't outer space, it's inner space. What changes for us, for science, for everything, when the object of our study finally becomes the subject that's doing the studying?